Oh my goodness. It's a Wednesday after game 2 between the Suns and the Clippers. And I feel like maybe the championship was decided last night. Is that outrageous to say?
Yes, it's outrageous to say.
Okay, I'm sticking with it. But bring it in. Troops, little Zoom from Quarantine Show. David Thorpe, what a freaking game that was, huh?
Yeah, it's funny. The NBA can't get out of its own way because on what should have been just a glorious night of two. I think it's not like the game was super well played. It was well played. It was very well contested. Like these coaches did all they could. The players bled to win, quite literally bled to win, and yet, as you eloquently stated earlier to me, it took 30 minutes to get through about 120 seconds of game time, and so that's an obstacle we have got to figure out. But Henry, I thought the game was great.
The supercut, the edited version is going to be.
Yes, you know, it's funny. I always say this. I don't know why I just didn't think of this before, but when people always ask me, "Hey, what do I do with my 5-year-old or 7-year-old about wanting to work hard?" I always say the same thing. Well, they just got to fall in love with the game. Like once they fall in love with the game, which is your job to help create that atmosphere, well, then they'll want to go practice. If they don't love it, then they're just doing what you tell them to do, and that's never any good long term for a relationship with your child. Well, so for those of us who are in love with the game, like I deal with the delays because I'm anxious to know if part of the suspense of like watching a movie. Was it out of bounds on Ayton? Was it out of bounds on Booker? Was it out of bounds on Saric? I don't know. I'm watching. But if you're not really in love with the game, you're clicking. And you may not come back to it. And so, but it's hard to get people to fall in love with the game that has 33-minute endings for 120 seconds of time. Like there's no other sport that has that. So
buzzer beaters are the best thing in basketball, and buzzer beating dunks are the best kind of buzzer beater. And Judy, maybe we could just spend a little minute marinating in the brilliance of Jay Crowder's pass to DeAndre Ayton. Holy smokes. Oh yeah, this is my favorite one right here, actually.
Look how this almost hits the side of the backboard.
Oh!
It's a brilliant. The play itself was not brilliant. It was basically a back screen. It really, I mean, there's not much brilliance you can have in that. The brilliance was in Crowder's perfect pass. And what makes a play brilliant is the literally how close it can be to a disaster. Right? There's nothing brilliant if there's no real risk to it too. But this almost hit the side of the backboard, which is a violation. Clippers ball, Clippers win 1-1. What an amazing pass. What Ayton did was super easy for a guy 7 feet tall and really athletic. The ball almost went in the hole on its own, which is not a goaltend in that rule. You can't have a goaltend on a dead ball.
So, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit that it's not brilliant because 20 teams out of 30 don't run an action in that moment. It's catch and shoot like the Clippers did right after that. Like, there's our superstar. Fucking throw it at him and don't do anything else, right? Like this was their 4th leading scorer, 5th leading scorer, coming off a screen, catching a ball. Like Devin Booker permitted Monty Williams to call and run a play with the game on the line twice, 2 times in the last 10 seconds. He didn't touch the ball, and like he took 2 shots in the whole 4th quarter. Like that's a special thing. That's why the Suns are the Suns, and they've won 9 in a row. And why the defense didn't know where the attack was coming, right? Like they were a little mesmerized by Devin Booker, right? And I think also brilliantly DeAndre Ayton totally freaking held on to Zubac's jersey and threw him into the pick, which is pretty awesome.
Well, first of all, to be more nuanced than that, you never run a play for just one goal, right? There's always, okay, what happens if they do this? Well, if they switch, for example, which they probably should have done, Batum stays home. He's 6'9", super long, and likely can make a play. And then you've got, and then Booker's popping out with Zubac on him. Zubac's on him. So probably then they throw to Booker, which is what the Clippers should have done, is force Booker to shoot going away from the rim where he's got to catch, square, shoot in less than 1 second, 9/10 of a second, right? And so Booker, we call it, in a sense, we call it screen to screen, except there wasn't a second screen. It's screen and pop. And the read Crowder has to make is Batum. If Batum stays with Booker, which you're right, he was worried about Booker, and Batum was the one who made the biggest error here. Although I would argue Zubac should have been farther deep and made them pop out. That's a whole separate thing. And from what someone told me, Zubac was lining up closer to the rim, which means they're giving up the perimeter. but someone on the Clippers bench was yelling, "No, get closer, get closer." I could see that happening. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Ty Lue. Curious to know what happened there. But actually, Henry, in 1 second or left, a lot of times they'll run this kind of lob. Normally it's defended better, but also it's just a hard pass. I don't mean it wasn't. I'm not saying Monty screwed up. Monty drew a perfect plan, because I guarantee you, if Batum stays home, Booker pops out. With 1 second left, there's not a lot of options. And remember, you only have 5 seconds to get it in. You can't run a real long developing thing.
No, but of course you're right that like these are the reads and the right plays. But if we go look in the last, these playoffs, like final 10 seconds, 1 possession game, like who shoots? Like I put it to you, it's 70% plus the leading scorer on that team.
Yeah, but normally it's not. Yeah, of course you're right.
They're not really making those reads, right? Like they're like fucking double team guys, just shoot it. Like that's what usually happens.
Normally it's not one. You're right. It's normally just not less than 1 second left. But yeah, you heard Mark Jackson say what he said. And the thing that bothers me with Mark Jackson's comment about get the ball to Devin Booker, get out of the way. First of all, it's not rocket science in that context to get the ball to your best scorer when he's guarded by a guy smaller than him and tell him to get to the middle of the floor and make a play. That isn't rocket science. But the fact that I think Jackson's trying to say Booker has to shoot it. And your point is, no, you and I both agree. You want, if you have a timeout, which means you get your shooters in the game, you want the most open guy to take the shot. And that's where I give Booker credit for. And the play you talked about with the sideline.
Wait, we got to go through the whole chronology, right? Let's not get sidetracked.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So let's start. We're going to go through starting the third quarter. Crazy play where Patrick Beverley takes Devin Booker briefly out of the game for stitches with a headbutt.
Yeah.
And on the broadcast, they're telling us it's, of course, an accident, but a lot of people try to reach for the ball without doing that. What's your take?
Yeah, so it actually wasn't reaching for the ball. It was a hezzy move, which is a hesitation move by Booker. And actually, he did it so well. There's another angle. We don't see it on this one, where you can see his eyes go up, which is something we teach. And so Beverly, whose whole identity is, I'm blanketing you like Juan Rice, is this saying, right? So when Booker raised up, the real good defensive players keeps his butt down and puts his arm up to contest and lives with that shot. But Beverly can't do that. He's got to aggressively come up and watch how he lunges up to try to take away that shot. And he's just off balance. At the same time, Booker goes to cross him over. It's just bad luck. I'm normally siding with the flagrant foul call when someone gets popped in the head. This is the rare instance where Beverly just got beat badly by Booker's brilliance, and then Booker crossed over, and that was just bad luck. And I think he broke his nose. I think we'll find out. Do they have to announce that, Henry, if he broke his nose?
I haven't seen it, but
do they have to announce it, though?
Do they have to?
Yeah.
If it's going to affect his play, like for gambling reasons, they're going to have to announce
So I think we're going to find out he broke his nose. As you said on the phone today, it looks broken. It's sideways on his face.
And then actually the announcers also cracked me up with they both come back after going to the locker room, and then Booker freaking gets him back, like blatantly elbows him back in the face. And also the answer's like, oh, that's just getting to the rim in the NBA. And it's like, no, you guys, like you missed it twice.
Right. Yeah. The first one, I thought it was a good no flagrant on Beverly. Beverly gets plenty of flagrant fouls. This was just bad luck. The second one, Booker literally used a move we call a hook. You go by a guy and use your other arm and hook behind, and normally you hook around the waist, and typically that's a foul.
Because you know where people's faces are. Yeah.
When you do it to their face, it probably should be a flagrant. Like Booker knew exactly. This is just coming from experience here. They know exactly what they're doing. It's a trained move, and you should not be doing it in someone's head. He knew what he was doing. He
walked to the locker room to get stitches, knowing that this is just like throwing at the batter in baseball, right? Like this was coming.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, so maybe we could watch this little Pat Bev foul on Cameron Payne, which was easily the weirdest play out of the many weird plays in this game.
I think I got this one figured out too. So so it's a transition. Cameron Payne's coming down the court, goes left, goes right.
Oh, God.
And Beverly tackles him. So as I told you, I really think that Beverly, I thought right then, man, he'd have been a great linebacker. He looks so little on these courts. He'd be a good sized linebacker in the NBA, in the NFL. So I think what happened there, this is where Beverly gets really reckless. He's racing to Payne. and Payne stopped short kind of suddenly. And I think Beverly just took a bad angle and doesn't care that he runs him over, right? I don't think he meant, when you and I were talking this morning, I thought, well, maybe the scouting report is just bludgeon Payne. That may be the scouting report. I don't think this is the case. I think it was Beverly just being absent-minded, racing like crazy, and not minding hitting him because he took a terrible angle and then Payne stopped short. Chris Paul does that all the time, but Chris Paul does it when you're just inches behind him, and so you just bump him. Payne was running full speed. Beverly's running full speed. He stopped short. He gets tackled like a quarterback in football. Yeah. Did you see how he reacted afterward? They don't show it on the video. Payne kind of looks up to the heavens, is like, what is going on? He's just getting hammered everywhere.
So I'm sure you're right about what's happening in this play, but for the record, the play before, Cameron Payne drove really hard and into Zubac and fell down like very awkwardly.
Yeah.
I thought he hurt his knee or his hip or something. He for a second he was like, for like a young healthy guy, it was a lot of pain. That was the very play before, and part of me was like, Patrick Beverly did take out Russell Westbrook, right? Like, and the Suns are out of point guard, and the backup's playing well. If he's out, that's really good for the Clippers. And part of me was like, maybe Patrick Beverly's going.
I don't want to stop this. I think you're onto something. Like I said, I don't think Beverly intended to tackle him. I just don't think he'd mind tackling him. I do think they're thinking, let's just be really physical. That's what happens. No coach ever says, make sure you tackle him on that. No, it's more of just, let's just be really physical with this guy. And meanwhile, Cameron Payne was the difference in Ayton was amazing. Cameron Payne was like, the Clippers went into the game thinking, I think, if we lose to them, make it be Cameron Payne that beats us. Okay. And when that happens, well, they're just a better team that day. And if for 1 second difference, right, they lose, but they won. Cameron Payne I watched all of Cameron Payne's shots this morning again. He was marvelous. He was just a great player.
Fun to watch. Okay. Now getting into the beginning of crunch time with 56.7 seconds left. I don't think we have video of this, but Devin Booker had just got his fourth foul on one end, and then Paul George is some kind of wizard and like moments later gets his fifth foul by hooking his arm. Can you explain that play? What happened there?
Yeah. So what they were doing on that is they were top blocking him. So they were trying not to let Paul George come up the floor, which means away from the rim he's shooting at, coming off a screen. And the way Paul George handled it, because Booker's got his butt facing the basket he's shooting at, right? It normally is not the case. Normally your butt's facing the basket you're defending. But when you're top blocking, you're on the other side. And so I think when Paul George saw that and was going to go curl around the screen, I think he put his arm right under Booker's. It's something we see all the time, and they tend to call it against the defense, and they did. And that's how he drew it.
Well, he kind of basically grabbed Booker's arm and then like turns and throws him to the ground. Mark Jackson.
But he was trying to use the screen, but it's hard to do that when you're, again, Booker's facing the other direction. So it's like trying to square dance with someone straight backwards, not so easy. It's going fast and going hard. And I think he also overplayed the contact because he's trying to draw a foul.
Yeah.
Smart. It was veteran play.
Then it's just like 1 point game back and forth. Cameron Payne misses. Paul George makes a layup. 30.9 seconds left. This is when Devin Booker makes his only shot of the fourth quarter. It looked really easy over Patrick Beverly. This is when Mark Jackson says that he can't sleep unless he gets the ball to his home run hitter. This is where I'm like, the whole reason they're fucking winning 9 in a row is because they don't think like that, Mark Jackson.
Well, I would have liked him to be more nuanced. I think what he should have said is, this is how I coach games most of my life. At the end of games, I want to get the ball to my best player in the middle of the court and then let him make a play. It does not mean he has to shoot it. But I've done my job. Obviously, if someone's wide open at the rim, I don't need to throw it to the guy in the middle. But assuming everyone's guarded, they're playing good defense, and we always try to prepare to beat the best defensive teams. It's not hard to beat the bad ones, okay? They're going to leave the guy wide open for a dunk. But the good team's going to take away all your most your easiest options. So worst case scenario, I used to run what we call screen to screen, or get the ball to my best player right around the top of the key, spread out, or run pin downs or whatever, and let him figure it out. And then if he passes, well, he made the right play. Jackson, I think, wants him to shoot it no matter what. And that's the mistake.
I feel like he wants to sort of further almost cultish thinking that like if an all-star shoots, the coach did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Then he's from this coaching fraternity where like this happens every day. And he doesn't want people getting fired for that, including if he gets another job, right? Like he's like, instead, the other option would be to be judged by like, well, how open was your guy and how's, how good was your play, right? Which is, that's a mess. You know what I mean? Like, I think they want to be judged on like, that's fucking Kobe Bryant, took the fucking shot, and like no more analysis. And that's pretty much how SportsCenter works. Like it works pretty well. Like
when we get to the Bridges miss, I'll go further into what you're saying because
we're almost there. So
yeah.
Actually, right after that, so Booker makes that jumper, and then Paul George makes the same jumper at the other end with 21.8 left.
Which should be clear, 14-foot shots by 6'5" to 6'9" men in the middle of the quarter. They're good shots. Like when you hear people argue against the mid-range as if to say the analytics are wrong, they just want threes and dunks. No. They want open shots by good players. And that's a good, Beverly's at best 6'3" and not long armed, I don't think. Booker's got a gorgeous, at a 6'5" body, gorgeous pull-up jumper. Those are uncontested shots. They're high percentage make, same as Paul George at his size. So those are good shots.
Yeah, they look great. And then they look great that night. Okay, then this very interesting play happens that, why don't you describe it?
Which one?
Where Devin Booker's doubled early. And
so just to go back to what you were saying before, the Suns want the ball in Booker's hands and then make the right read. So they get the ball to Devin Booker. He comes off a pin down, way out on the floor. The Clippers, this is why I thought both coaches were great. The Clippers, I'm sure in the timeout said, we might lose, but it won't because fucking Devin Booker makes another jumper from 15 feet, right? Batum immediately comes up, shows help off the inbounder, basically saying to Devin Booker, we're coming to you with two. You're not going to beat us. He does exactly what he should have done. Quickly throw the ball. I might have been Crowder as the inbounder.
Crowder.
Then whoever was a Rondo, whatever, comes to guard him. Crowder swings it to the Bridges.
And there's three defenders, basically. Jay Crowder and Devin Booker are standing together with three Clipper defenders.
Yeah. So two were on Booker. So Crowder swings to Bridges in the corner. Bridges had just made a three. Misses this one short. It goes long. Terrence Mann is on the other side of the court. And Ayton kind of does what I taught you years ago. He kind of pushes him under the rim a little bit, as if to say, if it's a close miss right at the rim, you're probably going to get it, unless I go over your back. If anything long, I've got a chance at it. So this is an easy Ayton rebound on a long rebound, except Terrence Mann's a motherfucker. And so he does the other thing we teach all the time. If you can't get it, don't let the bad guys get it. Worst case scenario, knock it out of bounds. He does it. I thought it went off of Ayton. They did a replay. They didn't say it went off Ayton. We never saw a great replay showing that it should have been Clippers ball or Suns ball for that matter. And now it's Suns ball out of bounds. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I did it in the wrong order. I screwed you up because really
Okay. I forgot the Paul George free throws.
Well, I also forgot the actual controversial, heavily reviewed out of bounds play.
Oh my God, I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of review going on.
A lot going on. Okay, now let's talk about the out of bound rule in general, right? So there was a moment where they're reviewing for half an hour, a very common play in basketball where like, player A has the ball and player B swipes it away, but player A's hand is the last one to get a little touch on it. That's what happens. And Jeff Van Gundy said, by technicalities, they're right that it's out off the last person to touch it, but this is bad for the game. We looked up the rule. The rule says the ball is caused to go out of bounds by the last player to touch it, including by touching the player's hair or uniform before it goes out. What's your take on that?
I was really mystified at Jeff Van Gundy. What he's saying is because referees have always gotten this call wrong, and by always, I don't mean 100%. We should continue to let them be wrong. I like listen, long before we had this super slow high def, video, I always thought referees were wrong. Now I was a defensive minded coach, but I felt like I had pretty good eyes. My guy hit it. on defense. The offensive guy, we created the momentum for it to go off the offensive player's hands going to bounds. Why does he get the ball back? I never understood why. It made no sense to me that even a block shots. So just because I got a hand on it doesn't mean the offensive player didn't ultimately shoot it and go out of bounds. Like he was the last one to touch it. All these cameras are doing is showing us referees been wrong for decades. So let's be right. It should change how we call it in real time. The problem is, as referees are taught to do, you're supposed to call what you see, and it's happening too fast to see in real time.
Right.
But I like the idea of just doing what we know is to be right. And so in this case, we know it came off the offensive player's hands, so it's Clippers ball. What do you think?
It's tricky. I mean, we were like, I think we're sympathetic to the idea, right? That if I'm kind of sloppily holding the ball and you just wail on it and it goes out of bounds, and it might technically last, it feels a little like it should be off you. But like the fact is, like, they can't make a rule like that, right? Like it's gonna be very fuzzy, impossible to enforce. And okay, we are then so on that review, the Clippers get the ball. Paul George is fired and is fouled, not fired. He's not getting fired. Misses 2 free throws with 7.8 left. These things happen. He was very tired though, right? This was your view?
I mean, it's hard to argue. It's hard to say that he's some kind of, he's pulling a Ben Simmons and he can't score whatever after the postseason he's had on his own as a star anyway. Obviously, Reggie Jackson's been great. They've had Terrence Mann, Zubac all played well. Marcus Morris had played well. But, I mean, normally when you miss free throws this late, either he's in pain or he's just too exhausted. Free throws is very much a product of focus. It really is. When you can really shoot free throws, you tend to miss when you can't just really lock in on the mechanic. I've done a lot of research on this, so you can imagine. And I think he looked fine on the line. He just missed. He was angry. I'm glad that he didn't react scared. He reacted angrily, and I'm glad. But I think he's exhausted, and beaten up, and he just wasn't as focused as he needs to be. And so that gave the Suns life.
Yeah, it sure did. Then that play happened that I already described with okay, now we're getting to the crux of the biscuit, as they say.
Who says that?
Oh my gosh.
Your grandpa?
You remember, David, we watched as a group at ESPN a rock climbing documentary before Alex Honnold was a big star. We watched a 60-minute segment. It's from there. There's a guy, actually it is a thing. You can look it up. I did look it up.
I believe it.
But there's a guy like on the ground with a 60 Minutes reporter watching Alex Honnold free solo up this El Capitan, and he's like, now he's getting to the crux of the biscuit, and I'm like, alarm bell. I'm like, what? But
is it Australian or British?
I mean, that guy was just American. I don't know.
Yeah.
But everything biscuit is British though, right?
Right. Pretty much, yeah. All right, so it's crux of the biscuit. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you mind playing the part with the sound, the little Monty timeout clip?
This is the inbounds play. Monty's drawing it up.
Yeah. If you can, I don't know if you guys can hear this.
Ball. Okay, execute it. DA. If he throws it, you gotta try to dunk it. Okay.
I love that.
Our ball.
If he throws it, you gotta try to dunk it. Okay.
He says DA if he throws it. DA John.
Yeah.
That's what I say when I say if. It's the read, right? If they bottle up the rim, here comes Booker coming out. I'm sure of that. Cam Johnson is the one who initially came off the first 80 screen going high. Booker was going to come towards the corner. I'm sure that was the play. And you think he'd be a little more forceful, like DA. You can't catch it. You have to just slam it.
Yeah.
He didn't say that though. It's almost like it's hard to explain what his thinking is there, but it worked. And DA also. You're not coaching kids. These are grown-ass men who've been playing a long time. This ain't the first lob dunk Aiden's ever caught of an inbound. I promise you that. First one in the conference finals was 1 second ago. Aiden was crushing these passes all night, by the way. It just wasn't coming from out of bounds. Aiden was brilliant in this game. Zubac was good and got destroyed. That tells you something. Zubac was solid. And Aiden was amazing last night.
I don't know if you saw TV just rolls on into SportsCenter, and they had camera Payne live from courtside, And basically like, what happened on that last play? He literally, his first answer is like, well, the refs kind of let you get away with a little bit in the last few seconds.
Honestly, I didn't really think that was. I've seen way more egregious things happen in the end of games.
Sure.
Yeah, Ayton and Zubac were kind of grabbing each other. I didn't really. Yeah, I thought the referees were fine on that. I thought the Clippers messed up not protecting the rim more. You have to. If you look at probability, there were much better chance that Ayton could dunk a ball when you can not goaltend, like the goaltending was allowed, than Booker or anyone making an 18-foot or deeper shot with less than 1 second left. Like, I think Derek Fisher, did he have 0.3 of a second left when he made his 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's double that, but there's not a lot of time still. I would have rather them lose on that than this particular play. Although Lou might have countered with the chances of throwing that good of a pass were so small. I would have rather them take a deeper shot, but whatever. This is the beauty of the game. This was Ayton was amazing. We're seeing a guy really grow up in a way. 2 guys on that team in Payne and Ayton just really playing as good as you could play. No one ever expected this of either of them, even just a year ago. I mean, this year, tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was last year? Last year, Payne was in China.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into Cameron Payne. We have a whole.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So after this, so 0.7 left. The Suns are up 1. 0.7's still not nothing. The Clippers don't have a timeout, and I put in the document that the Abbott rule should always save a timeout for the under 2 seconds. And you said that everybody knows that, and I said, well, how come no one fucking does it?
Yeah, I wasn't being critical at all. I'm saying that is, I mean, this. So, in my group of coaching, my coaching circles, as anyone would tell you, it's what we talk about the most, right? You have to have a timeout at the end. But I'm a big believer, and you know this because of the Thorpe rule. I'd rather you not save a timeout for the end. If you're already down 20, it won't matter. Like, you've got to use some timeout to keep it close. That wasn't what happened here. This game was remarkably competitive. I don't remember who had the biggest lead or how much was it for, but it was. If you look at the plus minuses, I think Kennard might have had maybe +8 was the most, but a lot of zeros and +1. This was a really, really hotly contested game, which means you don't call a bunch of timeouts because you're not ending 10-0 runs. There weren't very many, if any, in the second half. But the NBA is the only league in America where you can move the ball to half court if you have one. And so your Abbott rule is great because at 0.7, you got a way better shot. I guarantee you, if I went back and looked at every timeout the Clippers took, I guarantee you there was one that they didn't need to be called, and he could have at the end at least somewhat of the same kind of idea of a plan that Monty did.
Well, then there was this little conundrum, and I'm going to explore this for a second. But the Clippers had in the worst lineup imaginable, basically. Like, thank God they had Paul George in, but they had DeMarcus Cousins, Zubac, another non-shooter. Who was it?
They had Batum. They had Batum.
Pat Bev.
And then the 2 big guys. Yeah.
So here's what happens. Now there's half an hour of almost literally half an hour of just like review and delay and review and delay. And during that period of time, Ty Lue had a lot of game. He was coaching his brains out. So first, he just puts in Reggie Jackson and Luke Kennard when subs are not allowed. Two amazing shooters.
Yeah.
That means they had, and he takes out, I forget who comes out, but I think DeMarcus comes out. So now they have 6 players in the game. Monty Williams also made an illegal substitution and put in, who did he put in? I forget.
Well, it doesn't matter. Someone who wasn't in the game. Someone who wasn't in the game. Yeah, right. Someone who wasn't in the game.
So now the ball's about to be mounted, and you can see Monty Williams. I mean, you couldn't hear him, but you can see him being like, "They have fucking 6 guys." Right. And then, so there's like, "Oh, delay." So now the refs really get into like, "Wait, we need to make sure we have the right people." So now Ayton has to go back in. Ty Lue at this point, if you have it on your DVR, go and watch. He starts whispering to Reggie Jackson, a whole bunch of stuff, and Reggie's like, Reggie Jackson then walks to the far end, away from the view of the refs, to become the inbounder, which is kind of like out of view way to get him in the game. then Mike Breen says, now they've got the right 10 players. Jackson will inbound. Think about that, what he just said. Jackson isn't supposed to be in the game, right? And by the way, when Mike Breen says that, they still have 11 players. So then there's like more delay. Then during this next delay, Ty Lue, you can see him. He whispers to Nick Batum, who like nods and is like, and some other players come over and Ty Lue's like, get out of here. And then so Batum's like on the court as the referees are checking, and then just goes like boop, 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 like that Homer Simpson thing back into the hedge. And Nick Batum's like off the court again. And then there's like more delay, more checking. I guess that we learned later that maybe there was a big delay in like just getting, actually then the whole broadcast was seized. Someone pushed the wrong button because we saw the referees like freeze frame of Ayton's game-winning dunk moment. So this was obviously, they were sending a signal just like, here's who was on the court. That took forever. And so now eventually there's a moment where like, we got to have all those, Nick Batum's back and Reggie Jackson like slaps him 5, like, hey, we tried. Reggie Jackson finally goes out.
We can be a tricky bunch when it comes to that. I'll just, without going into detail, I learned how to be a shark that way at going to like all-star camps where it wasn't just the players that were all-stars. One year we had 9 future NBA players in the same camp of 100 kids. That's a pretty talented camp. Every player on my team is a D1 player. Every starter was a D1 player. But all the coaches were people like me that were very ambitious coaches. And let me tell you something, we were shark. If you weren't a shark, you were eaten up fast. We were living and breathing this all the time. So these guys are used to that. But I was in touch with an NBA referee this morning, as you know, and he pointed out what you just said, which was so I asked him, how do we fix the end of the game? 33 minutes for 120 seconds it can't work. I realized this was an exception, but we can't ever have it. And he wrote back to me and said, no, it was this end where it should not have taken so long to figure out. This is where the league can really fix this. The league should have, and I guarantee they will. There will be someone while this is happening, texting or messaging whoever's the scorer. Okay, if it comes to it, here are the 10 players that have to remain in the game. Boom, you got it. Give it to the head referee, because that took too long. It was chaos, and it shouldn't have been chaos. Yeah. It wasn't hard to figure out.
I have been lucky enough in my life to be in the replay center in Secaucus, where it's perfectly designed to be exactly what you want to make all of this go really fast. And the only reason that it doesn't go fast is because we need the theater of the in-arena referee walking over and looking at a screen and making the call. It's just getting it on that screen that's slow. That's the only slow step. They have an earpiece in. They're talking to Secaucus. They know what the call is going to be. They have it in Secaucus. They have it in real time on like 5, 10, 15, 20 angles. Like the second the thing happens, they know. So like as this whole game is delayed, there's 10 people in the room in Secaucus who are screaming like, Batum, like they all know, right? But it's just that it looks wrong. We don't like the idea, because the NBA hasn't earned our trust, that like nameless, faceless people in a room in Secaucus will make the call. So I think we're probably headed for a future where all of that communication is on TV, right? Where we can listen in.
So my guy told me that it's one guy in Secaucus that's going through all these different angles, and when he finds the best one, he puts it on this gigantic TV in Secaucus. I don't know if you're going to do this, but at the NBA Finals, I believe Adam Silver speaks before Game 1. Am I right? Or Game 3, maybe?
Game 1.
Someone needs to be asking him, like, exactly what's happening at Secaucus. Why did this take so long? We don't want this happen again. It's certainly not in the NBA Finals. At least I don't think we want that. I don't think we want to create even more drama when it's not on the court. There should be, I think what you said is right. If there's 15 TVs, we should have one person for every angle that the camera had. I don't know how many it is. Spend the money. For the last 2 games, the 2 series of the NBA and then the finals, one person per camera, and press the red button if you've got the perfect angle, and then put it on the big thing. You know what I mean? It should be one person. I'm telling you, like,
when they cut to the person at the replay center who's so unbelievably boring, the new guy, like, but but you can see in the background, there's a whole staff in there. Like they're doing that.
Yeah.
They have that. They know that. It's just, there's only one person in the room who's like authorized to like
Yeah.
communicate or whatever, but it's like mission control in Houston.
So they're all watching their own camera. Okay, that's what I thought it was, because you had said to me, they should put it right on the big screen. Yeah, they've got I mean, your point about trust is a great point.
Yeah.
It's got to be
Foster's all over the broadcast for crying out loud.
it's got to be fixed.
Okay. Some interesting stuff is and all that subbing, by the way, if the Clippers had a timeout, they get to put in their dream. Like they can have all the, and frankly, as fans, of course we want to see Reggie Jackson in the game. Of course, everybody wants that. Like, yeah.
Right.
I don't know if you saw a little moment, but in the locker room, they're FaceTiming Chris Paul, the Suns are. And as Scott Van Belt says that he's expected back in game 3, which means that's when I started thinking, like, I don't think the Suns won 9 in a row and they're adding back their rested, healthy superstar point guard. Like, I think they're going to win the championship now.
Yeah. If you told me no one else can get hurt, I can't, with all these injuries that happen, anyone's a turn ankle away from changing. And I'm an old school guy that believes you've got to suffer so much. Chris Paul has suffered. These other Suns haven't. I'm not ready to say Milwaukee can't win a championship. Not at all. Yeah. First of all, they have to get by Atlanta. And Kawhi has to not come back, which I'm guessing you don't think he's coming back, do you?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. So the Clippers are probably toast. But I'd like to see I'm not ready to say Milwaukee can't win. I think they're getting by Brooklyn, even though Brooklyn was really beat up, obviously. They roasted a good Miami team.
But who's your favorite? Who's the favorite now?
Well, I mean, Milwaukee hasn't even played a game yet in the Eastern Conference Finals.
We picked favorites in midseason. Like, we know a lot more now. Who's your favorite?
Yeah. I would probably, Phoenix, considering what they're getting back. And I don't think he's had any symptoms, Chris Paul, which is important. Like, I think he's going to be fine. And your point, he really is going to be rested. So yeah, I would probably put Phoenix as the favorite. I think
that's all I'm saying. Like, I think that I would have had Phoenix as 30% likely to win a championship before last night. And now they're up 2-0 and getting Chris Paul back. Like, now I'm going 50, right? Like, it feels like a big step to me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, if when they are hoisting the trophy, we look back at this as having been the key moment, right? Like this.
If it's 1-1, even with Chris Paul back, Chris Paul can't play better than Cameron Payne did last night. Cameron was just amazing. However, that Cameron Payne now coming off the bench will still be good. And this is where all these teams, Atlanta included, they've just stopped playing. Although Solomon Hill still gets some playing time sometimes. That's a miracle to me that he's on a team that he's terrible in my opinion. But mostly they play good players. It's a really important thing to win a championship, to have good players in the game at all times.
Aiden afterwards says, we don't know who's going to drop 30. We don't know who's going to hit the game winner. That's how the team is. We play for each other. And the key thing we do is togetherness. We try not to break that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it goes to what you were saying. When Booker got double teamed, a more selfish player would attack middle. He couldn't have gone sideline because he had 2 players and a sideline. He would have attacked middle and tried to make a play, and that would have been a mistake. Yeah. So the Suns are a very connected group. They're really defending very well. The fact that they can't pound the Clippers into submission, to me, tells me they're not bulletproof, because the Clippers are missing their best player. So, but still, to beat them is not easy because they don't beat themselves. And I think both teams combined, I'm sure both teams combined for less than 20 turnovers. That's a good sign. And some of those, probably half of those are offensive fouls anyway. Yeah. So they're not throwing the ball around, that's for sure.
So Cameron Payne has been a very bad NBA player, just to be honest. Like, he's 26. He came to the NBA when he was 21. His box plus minus, it's a reasonable for these purposes thing, has been as low as minus 7.7. That's about as it gets in basketball through those years. Never good. He joined Phoenix. Monty Williams was an assistant coach when Cameron Payne was a rookie in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And they had some conversation, some kind of bonding. And somehow when they're together, Cameron Payne last year plus 1.5, his first positive, and then this year plus 2.6. And of course, he was fantastic last night. This is straight David Thorpe stuff here. How do you get a Cameron Payne out of the raw materials that were Cameron Payne 6 years ago? Like, what's happened here?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know unless I knew the young man, but you can guess a couple of things. There's just an embrace, a full embrace of who he is and what he can do, and you can live with his mistakes. He's not worried about being yanked anytime soon. There's certainly the X and O on the court of how best to utilize him. I don't mean just the campaign for anyone. You can't make them fit into the system. You've got to make the system fit your players. That's what I mean by the full embrace. And probably, and this goes to something you said to me on the phone earlier too, there's got to be a comfort level between head coach and player of trust. And it's got to work both ways. It can't just be one way. It's not just the player trusting the coach. The coach has to trust the player too, that they'll execute and they'll do the things they're supposed to do. Someone asked me, what's the bigger issue? Coaches being too tight with rotation and not giving more guys leadership opportunities, GMs recycling the same guys on rosters. And I just wrote exactly. It's all of it, right? It's all those things. I don't mind recycling, but recycling in and of itself is meaningless. There's got to be the coaching aspect of it, the culture aspect of it to help this. But Cameron Payne can do this on all 30 teams, or he could suck for all 30 teams. We've seen that, right? This is where I've said since you and I first met in probably 06, it's a coaches league. It's not just coaches league, of course not. But I'm sorry, the guys who are deciding these games are Terrence Mann and Cameron Payne. Come on now. Obviously, Ayton was great too, and Jay Crowder, right? It's the coaches have to create that situation for a good percentage of our players.
And there's a little bit of we're on a dork show. We're dorks here. We get into this nitty gritty and we care a lot about the action to get someone open or whatever. And I don't think that the standout coaches of this postseason are these absolute wizards of nobody ever thought up some X's and O's so clever as that. I think you were explaining, this game-winning Ayton play was pretty conventional. I think that the key skill now is this trust thing, right? It's Monty Williams, I think, gets players, as Cameron Payne explained, they're willing to run the play. They're willing to do stuff, right? And on a lot of teams, I don't think I've sat in Steve Nash's living room as he diagrammed his favorite plays from his days as a Suns, right? The Nets don't do anything like that. It's all in Nash's head, and it doesn't matter if Kevin Durant won't do it, right? I think this trust thing is the thing, right? And I think, and Nate McMillan, oh my gosh, we both just love this quote where he said, I can't believe how calm I was throughout this game. And I think it just came from the fact that I knew these guys were going to give me everything they had. That's going well.
Yeah, I remember listening. I could talk for 20 minutes on this. I won't, but I remember listening to Hubie Brown at a clinic once, and he was talking about, oh my God, I'm gonna forget his name. James Posey. James Posey. Hubie was the head coach of the Grizzlies, and James Posey had a quote about something about giving. Hubie Brown deserves me to give everything I possibly have every second. And Hubie choked up. Hubie got emotional. This was at a live clinic down in Bradenton. He choked up at that. It's for coaches, knowing players will give us everything is so meaningful to us. I think Nate's gotten so much better as a coach. I really do. I also think Trae Young has bailed him out a ton. I don't think Nate has. I don't think Doc Rivers used to run some really great stuff for the Celtics. Great X and O type stuff. He also had really good players, right? That helps. I don't know that Nate's X and O's is so great. I think defensively, I think culture-wise too, he's great. Maybe elite, certainly great. And Trae Young makes him look much smarter. That's okay. Like Tim Duncan didn't make Pop smarter. Come on. It helps to have that kind of talent, but you still got to build all of it. Otherwise, just disparate pieces. And I think we have that. I think Monty's got it. I think Ty's got it. I did not like Ty Lue as a player ever. Although I heard the announcer saying yesterday, he's always been a yes sir, no sir guy. I happen to like that. My dad was a Citadel guy. My grandfather was a doctor in the Army. We were a yes, sir family. And as a coach, I always said yes, sir, no, sir to my players. And they did the same to me. Just that we just said, we're going to respect each other always. And I always felt like I had to start that. I was coaching high school kids. I had to start that. My NBA players love saying yes, sir to me. They love it. They love trusting that I'm giving them good counsel in life, not just in basketball. And I try to do the same with them. I think these teams have it. I really do. The question mark is Bud in Milwaukee, right? I don't know. They're hung with them. They made it again, and now they're in the finals for the first time. We're going to see, aren't we? Because I think Nate McMillan, who's a very good, if not a great defensive coach, they're going to build that wall against Giannis, right? Let's just see how Milwaukee handles it. If Bud's going to get fired, he's going to be fired because Giannis just keeps ignoring what he's telling him to do and does his own thing. Your point on Nash, Henry, I told you, I thought I saw a clip once where Nash says loudly to Durant, pass the ball. Durant dribbles down the court. This is in crunch time.
Yeah.
Of Game 7, attacks 5 guys, finally does pass the ball directly out of bounds, because he drove in traffic. That means Kevin Durant, he's one of the best players of all time, but I think your point is well taken, that there has to be a trust across the board and not bickering and not second guessing. These games have such small margins. All that stuff matters,
Okay. We still have so much interesting to talk about and a limited number of minutes. Gerard Hector will hopefully be joining us, and we can go kind of lightning round. David, take 90 seconds and fix Ben Simmons, would you?
In 90 seconds? Well, what made me laugh is that Doc Rivers said publicly that they have, we've got a plan. And I mean, what the fuck were you doing all year, Doc? You've had him since November. What? Or whenever he got hired. Like, now you have a plan? First of all, I don't think most coaches know what the hell they're doing when it comes to this kind of stuff. There's a psychological aspect of Ben that has to be addressed, and there's a mechanical aspect of a lack of fluidity in his shot. But this guy is a shell of himself and needs real professional help. And just because I think Doc is a very good, if not great, basketball coach, that doesn't mean he's a great shooting coach. And I just remind you of this. I can say this publicly now. I couldn't say it before. Their former GM, Brian Colangelo, called me to ask if I would be willing to help Markelle Fultz when he was having his shooting issues. And he sent me tape and went back and forth, and I told him I thought I could fix it. And then Brett Brown said, no, that's on me. It's my job, which is fine. But this is head coach thinking he knows that, because I guess he used to be a player development coach. Great, fine. It didn't work. There's a reason for that typically. Head coaches tend not to do this kind of stuff. So if I was Ben Simmons' crew, I'd be very worried. Although from my understanding, Ben Simmons is trusting the wrong people to begin with. And that's a whole other matter. Whatever he's doing, it ain't working. And they've got to do something major to fix it, or he's going to get traded anyway, probably.
Gerard, I see you in the chat saying that Pat Bev's in there to hurt people.
He is
I mean, Ty started him for a reason, right? Like, he wasn't starting before. Like, I'm not saying that Pat Bev gets in every game and goes, my job is to break ACLs and but he plays with a certain reckless abandon for his body, which when hurled into your body is a reckless abandon for your body, right? Sure. So, like,
well put.
on that play when Book pulled the hezzy on him, right? Like, a normal defender would have been like, all right, hezzy, whatever. Pat was like, nah, screw that. Like, and it's like, bro, like, I'm not, again, it wasn't intent, he didn't headbutt him on purpose, but he was like, screw that, you're not getting this off on me. Like, that's a thing. Like, and does that come into a player's mind, like in Game 5 or Game 6 or Game 7 if a series goes long? Like, for someone like Booker, I don't think so, but like, that's his thing, right? This is a skill league. We talk about it all the time, like immense skill. Yeah. Pat Bev is not high on the traditional immense skill list, right? That's not what he's good at, but his skill is being a dog and like literally like being that tornado and hurling his body everywhere. That's why he's in the league. So I have to do what I do that got me into the league, which is that.
I had one other thought. We didn't talk about the DeMarcus Cousins shoved Devin Booker when the game appeared to be over. And it was kind of weird. You don't see that very often, but it struck me in reflecting on that and these two that the further behind the Clippers get, the more a bench clearing brawl is perfect, right? Like, it is really the NBA's ultimate like leveling of playing field, right? Like if you just can get a fight going, if you're, you might get, it's the one move that might just get you, a Heat Knicks, whatever year that was when Jeff Van Gundy was hanging on Alonzo Mourning's ankle. You might get one of those kinds of suspensions. It's unlikely now. Players are much more disciplined about leaving the bench area and all that. But it struck me that I don't know that Ty Lue's like DeMarcus, you almost got a technical foul. Like that's not. I don't think I think he's like, worth a shot.
Yeah. I think it's like, let's see. And it's also because you don't know how the refs are going to call the game, right? What if Scott? And the funny thing that made this hilarious was a Scott Foster game, which of course is hilarious for any NBA fan because every fan base thinks Scott Foster's out to get their team. If it was a much tighter whistle, Pat Bev his antics would have been proved irrelevant, right? Would have picked up 2 quick fouls in the first minute and a half. Oh, got to sit down. But that wasn't the thing. So you don't know how the ref's going to call the game. So just let's see what happens. Throw it at the wall. Let's see what sticks.
There's an amazing thing about the refereeing too, which is the play of the season, right? Ayton's dunk, David's first earlier in the show, this is like, I don't even think it was supposed to be Suns ball. It's like we stopped for half an hour to review everything and maybe got
but didn't review really if it went off 8 and 10. I couldn't tell if it was Ayton or man. I couldn't.
I watched it a lot. It looked to me like exactly what Jeff Van Gundy was complaining about earlier, Gerard. Man was the impetus behind it when he pushed, but it looked like Ayton's much taller and longer than man, significantly so. It just looked to me, and I had no rooting interest. I could care less who wins the game. I just thought it went off Ayton, and I was weird. Why didn't we ever get a really good view of it?
Yeah, that was funny. In the 35 minutes of review, that's the one play that nobody, skip that.
They didn't want to slow the game down,
Well, I mean, the league isn't rooting for the Suns, obviously. The league wants to do it right, which is alarming that they really messed this one up. I think there's going to be some real fixes.
Coach,
this was the kind of game where they've got to fix it.
You said in the beginning that you believe that call where Pat was the impetus behind the ball going out of bounds, it's always out on the offensive player because he's holding the ball last?
Oh, no, not always. Just it's way more often. We're finding this out. I'm watching these games. I watch 3 or 4 games most nights. With 2 minutes to go, they review it. Or if there's a challenge, they review it. And it's just, I've been amazed, but I always kind of suspected it. And that's exactly how it's been. Yeah, the data is showing us it normally is off the offense on that.
So that's like a collective paradigm shift we need, right, Henry? Because in pickup balls everywhere and in the world of basketball, that's always out on the defender because he's the one who.
It doesn't matter in pickup because nobody has HD slow-mo replay. Everybody just agrees what happened, right? And that's the NBA I grew up watching. We're just like the only problem is that most of the audience does have HD slow-mo replay. And so the refs look dumber than the audience. And that is how we got here. That's how we have replay at all, right? It's because the refs look super stupid every game. And that's the problem. And they do have to solve that problem because we're not going to get low resolution TVs, right? That's not coming.
Done.
But they could choose, they could limit the number of reviews they're doing on this kind of stuff. And if we don't see super slow-mo, we don't really see a lot. We have to see it super slow-mo too.
But you can slow-mo at home. This started with the TiVo, right? This started 10 years ago where it's I know they were wrong. And they decided not to review it. What the hell? It's whole games were decided where everyone watching at home knew that they had blown a call. And that, I'm telling you, we can't live there.
No.
And if you just say X, Y, and Z replay, just basically say very little replay, then what you're guaranteeing is whole games where the whole TV watching audience is this is stupid. Which we also have.
What's next?
I really think we just need to have we need to see what the replay center sees. They have the good data. We just need to be there, not courtside. Okay. How often can you remember a multi-time MVP tweeting a little poem about how he's been conspired against by the league and its power brokers? Anybody remember that?
Who did that?
Gerard?
No, who did that?
I found it
last
night.
This LeBron tweet on the.
This is shocking to me. I thought it was fake.
Oh no! Isn't this a Drake lyric? Yeah, I think it's Drake lyrics. Yeah.
But never thought I'd be talking from this perspective. But I'm not really sure what else you expected. When the higher ups have all come together as a collective with conspiracies to end my run and send me a message.
So I have thoughts on that, and
Please, I don't understand what he means.
LeBron is the king of propaganda. Like, he is a propaganda machine. And look, it's fine. I get, because he's in a stage of his career right now where he has to make sure his legacy is bulletproof, right? Like that doesn't matter. Like, we already know, great, right? He is like, no. It has to be unquestioned when I'm done that I am the greatest player ever. So I say things in the media so that when good things happen, it's like, wow, goal you dug from, right? What did he say at the start of this playoffs? I'm never going to be 100% in my career. So that when I do win, what does everybody say? Look at LeBron winning titles on one leg. And right? It's all the mythology. When you are at this level, it's the mythos, right? By the time we're 100 years old, it's going to be, man, LeBron used to play with a cane and a walker. And like, this is what we're going to say just to like make the myth of the man larger than what we actually saw with our eyes. And my thing is like, you don't got to do that, bro. We already know. You're probably the greatest player of all time. Cool. We don't need the mythos, but he needs the mythos.
But what
was part of that?
What's the conspiracy, Gerard?
I got this. All right, so long before this happened, I heard from, a good, but not like, I didn't like report it. I wasn't like, this is like something you take to the bank. They're a little bit falling out over this vaccine. So like, the idea was that NBA players were going to line up in support of the vaccine, and that satisfies wheels within wheels, think people behind the scenes, political players. I don't even know how it all works. And LeBron was out, wouldn't do it, which we kind of know is true, right? And someone who knows people involved predicted to me that the Lakers would be out of the playoffs because of this. And I thought, what the fuck are you smoking? No chance it's true, right? But that idea was out there. I'm not this idea is out there. And so as soon as this happened, I was like, it's a little QAnon, right? It's a little bit. But
it's more than a little, considering those guys were injured. What did they expect?
But here's what's real is LeBron and Adam Silver are very careful with each other. They are partner sharing and running the league, right? And they don't talk this way about each other. Like, they kick owners out together, right? They confer on things, right? This is new. Like, this is LeBron opening the possibility. His friend Adam Silver is running a completely rigged league, rigged against him. That is not the way LeBron has ever talked, ever. He's super careful about that. This is like hang Mike Pence kind of moment, right? It's like, oh, there's a breakup in the like. I was like, this is alarming because Adam Silver hates this. Right. And that's new. LeBron didn't play those cards that way. Yeah, man.
It's a little scary. It's a little scary. He's not that old. I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of Hall of Famers who used to come watch me train a bunch of players. And we've heard also their comments like Oscar Robertson saying he was better than these guys, whatever. LeBron already kind of, taking the flamethrower to the league that he's still in is kind of weird.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, Henry.
There's a lot.
I was going to say, we got to stay tuned now, right?
Stay tuned.
There's a lot of craziness.
And his son wants to play in this league one day.
Well, right, because it's obvious. Right? That's just very clear.
He didn't take it?
No, it's very obvious that he hasn't taken
it. In fact, we don't really know. There's a lot of.
That's true.
There's a lot of
circumstantial evidence that points us in that direction.
He's got young kids, and the Delta variant is nothing to play with.
Trust is the hardest. It's all about trust, right? Like, then that's a little bit on the vaccine, right? And we need to do a little bit better with like, hey, we're not allowed to kill you here. It's okay. Really fast. David, I think you want to talk about the Blazers are reportedly interested in Becky Hammon's Chauncey Billups. Did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly point out that she's in the running, and I included a link on her stellar career.
Yeah.
If there's a woman, there's probably 50 women deserving of this, but no one's more deserving. She's the most deserving because, quite frankly, she's the most experienced with NBA players, and there's something to be said for that. Whether you're an assistant coach that's a male or a female or not, or played in the NBA or not, this woman knows probably more basketball than 99% of the people on the planet ever. And if anyone deserves a shot, I hope Dame Lillard picks her.
Henry, I hope Dame picks her and not Mark Jackson. So you're saying.
Oh God, please.
I do. I have beef with Mark's basketball takes every single time I listen to him talk. But at the same time, if that's who the players are all going to trust, see my earlier points about
trust.
you know, it's like if they're gonna love him and trust him, then I'm sure his basketball brain is more than adequate. You know, like it's like I just think he's wrong about this superstar thing all the time. Like it's just, but like let's be honest, with Terry Stotts as coach, the Blazers just did exactly what Mark Jackson would want them to do. Like,
true.
right?
You're right. That's true.
Like, what's the difference? All right.
Great.
That was a fun one. Thank you guys. We'll see you on Friday.
Take care, guys.
Great.